I'm a type A person. I like having a plan A, B, and C. And that goes completely out the window to where I just had to learn how to be uncomfortable. I had to learn to not have a plan. And that was very difficult. Again, like I had a lot of anxiety to where like I was having like panic attacks because I just felt so out of control and, things are chaotic and they're not in order. And my whole life, I've always had order and things going, to plan. So I had to just learn to like let go of a lot of that stuff and like, just kind of getting into like my spirituality to where, I have to trust the universe. I have to trust things that I cannot see right now. And I'm going to, just keep moving forward. I really just like the adventure of being with my husband and doing all these things. So I think that was really fun just because I was like with my person and my best friend. And instead of, trying to have control, I started just letting things go and, riding the wave is what we call it.
You're listening to Breaking the Ice podcast, a podcast I created for wives and girlfriends of pro hockey players. My name's Devin Dodaro. I'm the wife of Charlie Dodaro. We have 2 dogs, a little boy Crosby, and a baby girl on the way. We spent 8 months of the year living the hockey life in Europe, but we've also spent about 5 seasons in North America. I've been around the block, sometimes just for a cup of coffee, but I wanted to share the tools, resources, and what's helped me along the way, while also learning every week from each and every one of you. In this podcast, we share tips, tricks, do's, and don'ts for all things women, all things hockey, friendships, trades, long distance, moves, and life in general, so you don't feel so alone. So put your headphones in, go for a walk, and feel like you're sitting down with your best girlfriends. Oh, and make sure to follow the page on Instagram, Breaking the Ice Pod. Let's lace them up and tune in for a new episode every Wednesday. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Breaking the Ice. I am happy you are here today. This is an episode all about the ECHL. This will be a fun one to listen to for sure, regardless of whatever league you're in. Chances are a majority of us have been in the ECHL or in those minor leagues. If there's any word that pops into my mind when I think of minor league hockey, it is unpredictability and instability. I remember when we played in the ECHL and the AHL, and quite honestly, I never knew what I was in for that week. There were a few years where we were, kind of had stability when we were in Idaho, but there was also a few years where there was a lot of up downs, there was trades, and it was very draining, stressful, and hard on our relationship. I felt like I got thrown into this whirlwind world where I was like, wait a second, like what is going on? I don't have any control over these situations. I did not really sign up for this. Like I didn't, when I met my husband, I'm thinking, oh, like he's just going to play in Boise, Idaho, and this is where he plays. And had no idea that this job would pretty much take us all over the world. I mean, yes, it did take us all over the world, but especially in the US. Like I had no idea the lack of stability that I was about to endure. And it was a lot mentally for someone who's always had that stability. Like I've always kind of had this like plan, I pretty much lived a semi cookie cutter life where I'm like high school and then I went to college and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, moving here, and having to be apart from the person that I love and not having that feel stable because of hockey. Not only is it draining on the spouse, but it is also extremely draining on the player. And we chat about all the things included in this lifestyle. So they spent their time primarily in the ECHL, which, side note, she called it the Wild Wild West, which is how I will be referring to the ECHL from now on. But I asked her how she dealt with the unpredictability and what are some tools that she took with her, what she learned about herself going through some of these experiences. And she opens up about how a lot of this sense of feeling out of control led to a lot of anxiety and panic attacks. And we also talk about getting ghosted by teams, which, as you probably listened to the little clip on Instagram, this happens a lot and people really don't talk about it very much, but it can be very discouraging for families when you feel like you will be re-signed somewhere and then you are pretty much ghosted, or there's really a major lack of communication, and it can affect the self-worth of our significant others. So Stefany shares about a time where they went through that and how this affected them. We also chat about friendships, something I always love to talk about because we understand how our friendships are affected all being together in this lifestyle. So we primarily talk about friendships outside of this lifestyle, and also about how your priorities really change once you have a child. Stefany and her husband are now living at home. They just bought a house, which is so exciting, and they are finally retired after about 5 or 6 seasons of professional hockey, which is something that I think all of us can say that we look forward to someday, is having that time to kind of settle down. So she shares with us like the phases that they went through in terms of retirement and what that looked like for them. We also chat about how scary it is, honestly, for everyone if you are fortunate to make the decision to go into retirement on your own, and just having that thought of kind of like, whoa, wait a second, like what if we're both unemployed, and like how are we going to provide for our family? So it can be a really stressful time for a lot of people. So we kind of dive into that. We chat about how the guys can network post-retirement. A lot of the time they kind of have this built-in network right whenever they go to a new team, but once they're retired and they're out in the quote real world, as people like to call it, they kind of don't always know how to start up those conversations with people that are not hockey players, or just people that are in maybe a new field that they're going into. So we chat about that. And then I ask her the golden question of, does she miss when her husband goes on away games? So this was a fun episode. Stefany has a positive energy about her that is really gravitating. So I hope you enjoy. If you're listening, let us know what you think. Share to your story. This is how other people actually find the podcast, and it's very helpful. I always like to see like where you guys are listening from and what you're doing while you're listening. So have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you next week. How old is your son?
He turned 2 in November.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So they're like
Yeah.
literally the same age.
Yeah, close to, I think, your son's age. So, toddlerhood.
What
Boys
day
have
in November?
11/11.
No way.
When was yours born?
Well, no, but 11/11, that's like good karma.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, it was actually crazy because it was like 11/11/2020. So I'm like, okay, this is crazy right now. Like, this is a crazy birthday, and I hope he realizes that when he's older.
Have you like looked that up at all? Like the meaning of that? I feel like there's got to be like something within that.
You know what? It's funny because I've not recently, but like over the last couple of years, like I've became like a super spiritual person, and Arthur was a surprise baby. So he was a Valentine's Day baby. So it's been like really crazy to how that actually panned out to be born on 11/11. Because I actually had like dreams before we even got pregnant that I like saw him and like knew he was in the picture somewhere. It was really crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow. That's so interesting. They say that like mediums and stuff say that they start showing up like in your dreams first before
100%.
like when they're close to your fields, like what they call it or whatever, like when they're close to like wanting to be earthside, they like start showing up in your dreams and stuff.
It's crazy.
If you're into that kind of thing.
That's what I live for. That's what I live for. And it was crazy because I had a dream in December so vividly. I'll never forget it, where I was like, that was weird. And then the night before we found out I was pregnant, I actually had like a really crazy, weird dream that I was like, this is really bizarre. And I was like shown a pregnancy test, and I'm like, what? Like,
Oh my gosh, I
why
just
am I
got the
getting
chills.
Yes. And I woke up, I was not feeling good. I thought I was hungover. And I looked at my husband and I said, we gotta go get a test.
Oh my gosh, that is
So yeah,
insane. I
it's
love that. I
crazy.
love talking about stuff like that. Like I just
I
had
love
such a
it.
long conversation with my friend here today about just mediums and spiritual stuff. And it's like, it's so nice when you like talk to someone else that's
Yes.
interested in it
It's
because you're like, okay, you get it. Like, you know.
it's not the crazy eyes where people
Yeah.
are like, okay, if that's what, and I'm like, I live behind this stuff, like 100%. It's
Yeah.
defined everything. Like,
I know. That's like my husband. He's like, okay, Devin. I'm like, you're just not in touch with your spiritual side. It's fine. You'll learn.
which is funny because my husband was like the same thing, like not a religious guy, not into like anything voodoo. And a couple years later, like he's low key bringing crystals into the locker room. And I'm like, does anyone know about this?
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, and this is why you're winning these games, honey, is because of the crystals.
Yeah, well, I think he started like seeing my journey and was like, okay, like
Yeah.
something's happening and it's cool and I'm interested. So,
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, I'm
but
excited to talk. To the very top of my notebook wrote the ECHL, the Wild Wild West. I was
yeah,
seriously dying that you said that because it is so true. So I'm excited to just dive into like your journey and everything ECHL today.
I love that. And like honestly thinking about it, hockey life's the wild, wild west. Like you can think you can predict and plan and it's funny, like the saying, like you make plans and God laughs. And I'm like, he probably got a real good one out of us.
Yeah, you make plans
So,
in the hockey life and God laughs. Like, good one. So when I think of the ECHL, I always think of unpredictability. Like you're up, you're down, you can get traded, there's zero security. And obviously the goal when you're in the ECHL is to like move up. That's the goal for anyone until you make it like to the NHL. I think that's everybody's dream is to play in the NHL. So I'm going to hit you with the big question right off the bat, but how did you deal with like the unpredictability in that league? Because it can be really, really hard for a lot of people.
it's really, really hard. And I had no idea what to expect. So those hard times were extremely difficult. Like I experienced a lot of anxiety and a lot of change and things that were just out of my control. So I really leaned on my husband. He was really good. Like he knew this was different for somebody who didn't know anything about the hockey world. And I leaned on him a lot. I leaned on my hometown friends. We both come from supportive families. So it was kind of just leaning into the people that loved you and that were genuinely there for you. And then I
Mm-hmm.
kind of just found more things out about myself to where, I started embracing the journey where I'm like, okay, well, this is what we're doing and let's see what happens. Let's see what comes out of this.
You mentioned your family. How did they take in the hockey life? Because I have things to add like on my family too, because I think that's something I've actually never really like got into super deep on the podcast before. But like I think that a lot of people's families can sometimes feel like, are you sure this is like the right, not the right person, but like
100%.
this life, like this is like a lot, you know? How did your family like absorb everything that you guys were going through?
So they were very, kind of like you're saying, they had no idea what to expect. They just had judgments, and that's fair. I come from a really tight knit family. So it was more about like, hey, we're looking out for you. And who's this hockey player? Like, hockey players, what? Like, you think that's a serious thing? And I'm like, 6 months later, I'm moving in with my boyfriend at the time to like a different state. And they're like, hold on, like, what's going on? Like, are you in this like La La Land? And it was really frustrating because, when I met my husband, it was love at first sight. Like I knew, wow, that's my husband right there. And I dove right in and I saw him for who he was. And, he's such a genuine guy and he's nothing like those stereotypes. So
Yeah.
it was a lot. It was very frustrating. And it kind of just took time to like my family getting to know my now husband,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of just them watching our journey and seeing how everything's playing out for us.
Yeah. Did you guys have like a lot of ups and like call ups and send downs and trades or anything like that that you had to go through?
So literally I went on the first date with my husband, and a week later he got called up to the AHL. And I'm like, okay, so this means like you're going to where and for how long? And it's, I don't know. I can't tell you. Right. So I'm thinking like, all right, this is kind of fun. We had our first experience right off the bat of like a long distance situation where I think it was like 24 days, I counted, where we didn't see each other. So to me, that was a really good test of time, to where like, what's our relationship going to be? Like, is this going to go through, or are we going to fall off? And so that was kind of like the very first taste of the craziness.
Yeah.
So, one of the biggest things that had happened, and I know I'm kind of jumping right into it, was
Jump in,
my
girl.
husband played for the same team in the ECHL for 5 years, which is actually a very unique situation because if people don't know the ECHL, it's strictly 1 year contracts. So that's a big deal to be able to stick with like one organization for 5 years. And it was, the last season was good. They made it to game 7 of playoffs, took a brutal loss. It was a lot.
Wow.
And, my husband had good relationship with the owners, the coaches. I mean, 5 years is a long time to work and be with people every day. And, come off season, they completely ghosted him, didn't hear from them from weeks or from the coach. And we're still living in the team apartments because we were living there full time. Finally, my husband got a hold of the coach, and I didn't know what was said in the conversation. All my husband said was he acted like he didn't know who I was and why was I calling him. So it was a crazy situation where, my husband's a nice guy. He cannot say a bad word about anybody. It's actually kind of irritating. And I'm like, I've never seen him, like, he looked like he saw a ghost from that conversation, where I'm like, what the heck is going on? I felt so
Yeah.
bad. And he, like, he felt really hurt. And then he told me what happened, and I was really hurt. I'm like pissed off.
No, I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to jump in and say, I think that like that's relatable to a lot of people because I think that happens more than people really discuss is that you feel like maybe you're on the same page with a team or like a GM and you have this good relationship. But then when it comes time to resigning, like they have something else in their mind. And I feel like it's just really shitty when there's no communication. It's like, I think that everyone would almost rather appreciate like a blunt hey, like this isn't working out because XYZ, so they can have some clarity. Otherwise, it's just like it is hurtful. Like it does feel like a slap in the face, like especially if you've been with an organization for such a long time.
Yeah. And like, exactly like you said, there were relationships with the CEOs, the coach, all the management. I mean, like I even did, it was like, hey, like this isn't just like a work thing. Like I'm here talking to you guys every day. And, my husband worked his ass off. He put his body on the line, had multiple concussions. He played his ass off during playoffs, injured, so he's putting his physical body on the line. And it really didn't even come down to the decision. It just came down to like, you don't respect this person enough to just give him a conversation. Like you said, it's like you can think one thing is all good, and then
Right.
it's like the next day it's completely different story. It was actually shocking. It was shocking to a lot of people. Like no one saw it coming. And like I said, it wasn't even about like, hey, we have to move forward. It was like they completely ghosted him. That was like a huge pivot point in our experience with hockey, to where, he's like, I don't know what to do. Like, I think I'm just going to be done. Like, I'm feeling bad about myself. Like, I thought,
Yeah. Oh.
and like you said, it's you go in the ECHL because you want to move up. And my husband was at the point in his career where, he had lots of injuries and he kind of already passed that point in a way. So he was just feeling discouraged. And ironically, it might have been the same day that phone call happened, he had received an email from their biggest rivalry, the owner of the biggest rivalry of Toledo, which is Fort Wayne Komets. It was the nicest email. I ended up reading it and I was like, wow, the owner just said the most amazing, nice things about you as a hockey player. And why didn't that come from the team you just gave everything to the last 5 years?
Yeah. So that must have been like really validating though, in a way. Like, okay, I'm actually like deserved to have a contract. And maybe it wasn't personal, but I feel like sometimes people just don't have like the skills to have those hard conversations. You know what I mean?
You know what? And I think that's what it was. I like to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's just the skills, or they don't value that type of moral to have. I don't know. It was weird. So it's funny. And I'm like, wow, that's a really nice email. My husband immediately deletes the email. And things are weird right now. It's a weird, we're hurt. There's a lot of emotion. Things are sensitive. And, we took a couple days and we were kind of just silent about it. And a couple days later, I was driving home from work. I had a really long commute. And that email was like weighing on my heart. I was like, I cannot get this email out of my head. Why? So I finally walk into our apartment and I just start crying. I think obviously with hockey being so up and down, like the emotions just come out when they do. And that's all. I'm like, I don't know how to control this. And I said, please, I'm like, can you just have a conversation? Just have a conversation with someone who thinks so highly of you. Like, why not? And he finally gave in. He's like, I will have a conversation. And it all went good. And then, other coaches started reaching out to him, and he started feeling good and like, okay, like I got this. This is just a really big change. And, no one knew about this. Our family didn't know. We didn't say anything to anybody because we didn't know. And then you know how it goes. All the questions come pouring in. Well, what's going to happen? What are you going to do? Is he going to, and I don't know. I don't know.
The question. Yeah. Exactly. I think, I mean, sometimes they just need that push from us, right? Like I remember there was one time where Charlie was kind of like not sure what he was going to do with hockey, and we knew we weren't going to go back to Idaho, and it was like that weird time. And I was like, why don't you try Europe? Like, what do you have to lose? Like, you know what I mean? Because, you do get to a point in the ECHL where you're like, okay, my body's slowing down, or like, it's just a grind. Like it's a grind. Let's just be honest. And so that was kind of like where he was at, and he was like not wanting to do the up down anymore. And I was like, I was trying to push him and encourage him to be like, well, just try this avenue. So sometimes they need us to give them that little push. Otherwise they would just be like, no. But so then he wound up signing with that team, and then they won the Kelly Cup that year, right?
Won the Kelly Cup. And you're so right, because it's like they don't realize it, but we, like, the wives and girlfriends, first off, we love them. They are our best friends. And I know a lot of other girls that I have met, like they're ride or dies. These relationships, they're not for the weak. I know a lot of us know that it can be very difficult, and it all comes down to like, we just love our guys, and we see things that maybe they can't see, where it's like, I don't want anyone crossing you. Like, you're going to cut my husband. Like, we're going to go time with your biggest rival and win the Kelly Cup. And that's exactly what happened.
That is so funny. Oh my goodness.
And it was shocking. Like, everyone was like, oh my God, like, this is a big deal.
Yeah. And that must have felt good too.
And I don't think people even know how deep the meaning of winning a championship like that was for my husband and his whole hockey journey. And then everything that like I went through with him, and for the championship, it was a really big deal to like get that full circle moment. Just it just makes all those really hard times and things that we've been through, like, it was like, okay, yes, thank you.
What has like the unpredictability taught you about yourself too? We learn so much about ourselves in this lifestyle. Like as hard as it is, I have grown so much in the last 9 years, which obviously this is like a pivotal time in our lives, regardless, like the mid 20s, 30s, like it's a pivotal time. Like there's a lot of growth that happens regardless. But then I feel like if it coincides with hockey, it's just like you really have to like depend on yourself and learn how to be independent. And
a lot of things. I'm a type A person. I like having a plan A, B, and C. And that goes completely out the window to where I just had to learn how to be uncomfortable. I had to learn to not have a plan. And that was very difficult. Again, like I had a lot of anxiety to where like I was having like panic attacks because I just felt so out of control and, things are chaotic and they're not in order. And my whole life, I've always had order and things going, to plan. So I had to just learn to like let go of a lot of that stuff and like, just kind of getting into like my spirituality to where, I have to trust the universe. I have to trust things that I cannot see right now. And I'm gonna, just keep moving forward. I really just like the adventure of being with my husband and doing all these things. So I think that was really fun just because I was like with my person and my best friend. And instead of, trying to have control, I started just letting things go and, riding the wave is what we call it.
Were there certain things that were like triggers for you that would kind of spiral your anxiety?
Yeah. So a lot of it too was like you said, we're in our mid 20s. A lot of things are happening, a lot of things are changing. And I had to kind of figure out like where my career stood with, trying to be on this adventure and be with my husband for hockey. So that was very difficult because it was going against the norms. And, I had a great full-time job. I completely quit that job and said, you know what, like I'm going to walk away from this for a little bit. And it was the best thing I could have done because I was able to kind of focus on myself a little bit and then establish, like part-time career in, Ohio at the time and then, picking up back in Indiana. But that was very hard for me because I felt like a lot of people were judging me like, what do you mean you're not working? So that was hard. And starting to like realize where my friendships stood, where, it's like I am a long distant friend now and I am missing out on things. And that gave me a lot of anxiety because I still, I wanted to have my friendships and be with my husband. So those things are really hard.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. I mean, still, I think you guys are obviously retired now, but when I see my friends doing things, like there's a huge part of me that's like, gosh, like I just wish I was there. I wish I was able to join in. And I see like a lot of these like group outings that I just feel like I'm on the outside. And when you go back home, you feel like you have to kind of make up for all this lost time. And you can kind of feel like an outsider almost because you're a little bit removed. Like it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind in a way, because it's harder to like have those conversations and stuff like that as often when you're not in the same place.
No, it's 100% true. And that was kind of, that was like a trigger for me because it's like you want to be in 10 places at once. And then it's like when you do go home, it's like you're being pulled in 100 different directions and it's exhausting. And then you feel guilty no matter what you do. And it's like people are like, hey, like I'm kind of like mad you were home and I didn't know. And it's like I was here for like a special occasion or, it was a quick turnaround. So that's really hard.
Did you feel like you saw, I love talking about friendships because I think it's something so many people want to hear about too, like in this hockey life, because, it's such a community, like only the people in it really understand it. So we go through a lot of the same like experiences with our friends, with our family, with like outsiders, with anyone in general. But did you feel like your friends had a hard time like understanding the decisions or the choices that you were making?
Yeah, for sure. And, I think a lot of that just does stem from like, hey, I've known you my whole life and I love you. And this is kind of scary for both of us. So I did feel, some judgment. And then I had friends who were super supportive and like rooting for me. So I kind of just let those good, strong friendships, I kept those ones kind of closer to me. And then, maybe the ones like where I kind of got like a little outside view where, maybe those ones just fade away over time and it's nothing bad, but it's just, you have to prioritize like your true strong friendships and the ones that are willing to like let you go on your own journey and let you grow as a human and they're cheering for you. So I kind of just like hung on to those types of friends and things kind of work their own way, where
Yeah.
friends might sink, but then it's like you're making room for new friends, maybe, like hockey friends. So that's kind of like, I try to look at it that way.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's full circle moments with people too. Like if you have kids at the same time and that's like you kind of reconnect and stuff like that. So that's always nice. Yeah, you're right. I think it's good to just focus on like the people that are supportive and everything like that. I think I find myself even though I am removed, it's harder for me to stay in touch too, almost because I feel so far away and I'm so busy and you get kind of caught up. Whereas like if you are back home and you are in your hometown, it's easier to make time for that
Right.
because you're right there, or it's easier to meet up. But it sometimes can feel a little bit harder to like check in when you're not there.
Totally. And I know with like your time zones and just motherhood,
Mm-hmm.
like what is time to yourself, let alone like time with your friends? It's so difficult where, like luck if you can go through motherhood and pregnancy with friends who are also going through that, it's like you guys totally get it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm texting them 4 days later because, hey, I started texting you and then the 2-year-old and I
Yeah.
got distracted, but
You're like, you
hey,
don't even need to explain. I get it. I'm doing the same thing.
exactly. So it's hard, and it's like you grow up and life's all about friends and then you get in your 20s, things are changing and then it's like you throw hockey life in there and it's like it can be difficult, but it's good too because the friends that come through and they stay by your side, those are extremely special friendships.
As a mom now, I totally realized that like the people and my friends that were moms before me, I felt, and you don't know till you know, right? But I felt like, oh,
Exactly.
I feel so awful that I wasn't like there for them or I didn't understand. But then again, I didn't understand. And I think it's kind of interesting. Just it's an interesting take for people that are listening that A are moms or A are not moms. But like
Oh yeah, but it's so true what you're saying. It's like, how do you know? You don't know.
you don't know. And then you become a mom, and then it's almost like there is a point in your friendship with someone where there is like a little bit of a drift when you become a mom, and it's not personal because you love those people. It's like I felt that when my friends became moms. I felt a drift, and it's sad. And I think that some of my friends that are not having children yet, they probably feel that drift from me. But your kids become such a huge, I mean, it's like your whole life in the current
Oh
moment
yeah.
that it's like you can't relate on that level.
It's funny too, and like you said, it's weird because, we're moms, we're postpartum, we are not ourselves. It's hard to show up for ourselves a lot of the days, let alone like to show up for a friendship. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a personal thing.
Like
A lot
it's a
of
bandwidth. It's a bandwidth. It's like I don't have the
yes.
bandwidth because I'm so tired or whatever, you know.
Yeah, or it's like you are in survival mode and you're trying to get through the day and be the best mom and take care of a kid and you're not sleeping and you're solo parenting. So it can be difficult. And like you said, it's not personal. It's just we're going through the season of life where our friendships are not the priority. And that's not to say they're not special or like you don't love that person. It's just like you're not even feeling like yourself most days. So it's hard to show up how you want to for your friends. And I was kind of like the first mom out of my friend group. And so it was weird because, of course, everyone's happy for you and congratulating you and how's the baby. And it's like, ask me how I am because I'm not okay. And I need love
Yeah.
and support. And you don't know that I need that, but I do.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't
Mm-hmm.
know that until you go through it. So it can be hard, and like I said, the real friends, it's just like hanging on to those that like they know what you're going through, and
Mhm.
it's okay if you don't talk for a couple weeks and then you pick right back up and there's no resentment or keeping
Yeah.
score type of thing.
Yes, totally. And that's such a good, strong point to make, is that when you become a mom, your friendships are not the priority. And that's just what it is. And I think when you're not a mom, your friendships are a priority. And
Yes.
it's a shift in any relationship. It's like totally like before I had kids, it was like, my
Oh
my
yeah.
husband, my boyfriend, like at the boyfriend at the time, and then my friends. That's what I was, all
Yeah.
about. And then it's like it's just this a dynamic switch that it doesn't mean it's forever, but you're in a season of life where you're just in the thick of it, and it's
Yeah. So no, and it's kind of just, making sure that you have friendships that you go through with all the seasons of your life, whether it's like marriage, motherhood, or gaining a little bit more independence back from motherhood. And it's all about just respecting people in their own journey too. My friends who are mothers, I respect them where it's like, hey, I'm here if you need me, and don't feel like you got to text me back. It's
yeah.
just you
Yeah,
couldn't.
exactly. So you had your son while you guys were still playing hockey, right?
Yeah, so we were both from Michigan, and we ended up having my son in Indiana in the middle of the pandemic, so it was really crazy. We didn't even know if hockey season was going to happen. But we were really just like hoping it would and praying, and said, let's just go to Indiana and just plan on it happening and hope for the best. So it was just a weird time in the world because COVID was very active in Michigan, and we have all our family in Michigan. So it's like, well, why are you going to Indiana to do this? People didn't understand, that was our home at the time, and that's where we were comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
The COVID restrictions weren't as crazy, where it's like I knew for sure my husband would be in the room with me.
Yeah.
And I just knew for sure like they wouldn't make me put a mask on because it was just a really hard time to be pregnant. So we had my son in Indiana, and it was just my husband and I, and it was actually like a really intimate, beautiful moment. Um, it kind of, and our family did come and visit us, but it was kind of just like the three of us. And it was cool because, hockey really does add like really tight knit family foundations and values, because it's like you're relying on each other, and it really just strengthens your family in a way. So I had a great experience, and the team was amazing to us. Like we knew if we needed anything, they would help us out, and they had flowers for us. So
Oh,
we did have a really good experience, even though it was like COVID. And
totally, totally. And I mean, I'm right there with you. Like I had a COVID baby too, and it was tough. Like I think anyone that has been pregnant in the last 2 years, like the extra stress that was added on during that time. And it's unfortunately it's not how anyone I think envisioned like a time to be pregnant. Like people couldn't have baby showers, and like it's
totally.
just the hospital restrictions and stuff like that. But I think everything happens for a reason, and there's like a reason why that was the right time for everyone that went through that at that time. Like there was a reason for it.
Yeah.
But when you guys signed in Indiana, was that your last year of playing?
So my husband did kind of go back and forth like with retirement after playing for Toledo, and he knew he wasn't done yet, but he knew like he was getting to that point just because of injuries, and he was getting older, and we were planning like a wedding, and we were gonna, want to have children. So he just wasn't done yet. And we wanted to, into Fort Wayne with a really open mind, and just saying, he's here to win a championship, and that's what we wanted to do. And he was going to work his ass off to do that. So unfortunately, that first season, it was like so much fun, great group of people. We were living our best life. And then the pandemic happened. So the season did not finish. So then,
Mm.
like we said, that following year, we had our son. They were able to have a delayed season that year. And we kind of knew going into that season, if it was going to even happen, he had to do it, because a lot of ECHL teams did not play that year, and unfortunately, like that drove guys into retirement, and that sucked for a lot of players. We knew a lot of players that ended up going into retirement, not by their choice. And I think that's really hard for people. So we didn't want to take anything for granted. But I think we went into that season knowing it was kind of going to be the last. So
you were like nearing being ready anyways.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it had to do more so just because, my husband is a father now, and he wants to teach his kid to skate and not be hurt or unable to do that. And he was kind of past that point where, he wasn't going to go to the NHL or AHL, probably even at that point, to where he didn't really have anything to prove. He just wanted to go give it his best, make it, all that he could. And, I did too. I went to every single game. I traveled with a 6-month-old by myself to just make the best of it. And, we did all the fun playoff jackets, and I did some like custom, hoodies and onesies for my son. And I was just I just knew it was going to be the last season. And I wanted to make it like the best and put my full effort into it.
Yeah, I love that. And that's nice to go out like that, I think. And like you said, there's so many people that don't get to choose when to go out. And I think that can be really hard. And that's not to say that making that choice isn't hard too, because I think no one always, like, people don't always know what's on the other side of it. Like, it's like,
exactly,
this is kind of their identity and they have to start over. So was that transition, regardless of the fact that you guys did choose, like, okay, this is, we're kind of done. Was that a hard transition for your husband?
It was. My husband, if they could play hockey forever, they would. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of people
Charlie's like, there's a guy in like this one league that he's like 55 or something. I'm like, yeah, if you think you're playing like you're 55, like you might want to like think different, because that's not happening.
And like it comes to a point like where the party's just over. It's exhausting. It's a very fast-paced life. It's just like unpredictable. And I was struggling. Being away from family with a newborn, and we had like crazy COVID restrictions. It was very isolating. And I struggled just as a lot of new moms do. And I think that kind of spooked my husband to where he's like, yeah, we need more help. Like, we can't just keep making you go through this. Like, it's too much. And, it kind of just came down to like what's ultimately best for our son. And that was just being that close to family and having like a little bit more of like a normal lifestyle to where it's more predictable, where I can have support as a mom. Because it's just hard. And I felt like I wasn't showing up as the mom that I wanted to be. And my husband knows I've dreamed of this my whole life, and here it's happening, and I'm struggling. It's hard. And I mean, totally. I know that's motherhood, but it's just, like I needed my mom, my husband's mom. She helps us out a ton. So it was a very hard transition too, because it's like my husband only knew hockey. He never went to school, never got like a college degree. And just full transparency, it's a hard economy. It's hard to find like a good job, and things are really expensive right now. When inflation, that was a very difficult thing where it's like, where do we even start to like keep up with this, world that we're in right now? So it was an exciting transition, but once the new kind of, we're back in Michigan, like wore off, things got hard because my husband's trying to be a provider, and I'm at home with my son, and he's a fish out of water in like a whole different world.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all of that, because I know that's like really personal, but I just want you to know that that's very relatable to myself and to other people that are listening to this, because everyone gets to a point where they're done, or they're going to be done soon, or that's like in the near future. And I think that it's scary for everyone, because like from our perspective as a wife, it's like, I'm not working because I'm following you, and then you're going to stop and you're not going to be working. So how are we supposed to like be paying a mortgage, or, like like you said, that's this economy right now, inflation, like everything is so expensive. How are we going to live? You know what I mean? Like, what if we're both unemployed? Like, what if it takes a while for us both to find jobs? Like, it's a very stressful thing. And I think there's a lot of couples that they're ready to retire and they're kind of done, but that next step is really overwhelming. Like, I mean, we're for sure kind of in that point too, where it's like, I think we'll probably do another year or two, but then it's kind of like, well, we need to start thinking about this because this is actually like pretty close in the future. But it's scary because well, what if something
Terrifying.
Yeah. Like
It's totally terrifying.
So how did he like navigate that kind of provider role? Because I think all men want to be providers for their families. And when they don't feel like they're doing that, they don't feel good, right?
Totally. And, like you said, you can plan mentally and emotionally, and you really can't plan for anything in life. I feel like you kind of just have to take one step at a time, try to just think your decisions through. And it's hard, but we kind of had a minute where we're like, okay, this is kind of scary. We don't know what our future holds, but you know what? Like let's try to build what we want. Like, let's try to make choices that will, hopefully like put everything together. So we, were able to find a place to rent to start. And he started just networking with a lot of people. I really highly recommend just, networking with anybody. You never know who you're going to talk to. And my husband met people through hockey that he was able to network with and, like a business type of way. So he found a job and he started like getting experience in sales. And it was the hours sucked, right? Because it was like he was just starting. He had to start somewhere. And it was hard. Like you said, it's like they want to take on that provider role. And now they're the fish out of water and they're uncomfortable. And it's scary and you have a family to support and it's just like things are expensive and people don't realize hockey players and families, like, we're not millionaires. We work just as hard as other people. There was that transition that was very hard, and I had a point where I looked at him and I said, do we just do another year hockey, because I don't know if like we can handle this is like kind of scary. And I kind of felt bad, but he's like, no. He's like, I'm not going to run away from this. It's going to happen. It's already happening. We're fine. Like we're getting through this, and things really do work out if you just let, the universe play its role, where he ended up getting into a different job with his first job's experience. And that really was like a good thing for him. He finally felt like he found his place. He's gaining his success. He is supporting his family. I actually ended up going back to work part-time, which was the best decision for me because I was used to being that stay-at-home mom, and it got to be too much for me where I just, I wanted my identity too. So we were able to really kind of figure things out over time and just kind of like ride the wave. Like I said, it's just, things are really hard right now, and let's just work hard to, try to just keep planning better for our future. And things really do work out. I don't know how,
yeah,
but now we're here almost 2 years later. We just bought our first house.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
so
you.
exciting.
It was so exciting. It was such a miserable process. The house market, it sucks. I'm like, we got bad timing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure it feels so good to just like lay roots and be like, we're done. We can find this stability. And like, I mean, I look forward to like finding a job and like finding my place. Like, I mean, I think like you said too, networking is so important. I think like for guys, they have that automatic networking through their team, but I think it's like you throw them out into the world. They're just kind of like,
yeah,
how do I like have these conversations? I'm like, I tell Charlie all the time, because he does real estate. And like, but it's all referral based, right? So when you're first getting started, it's kind of like difficult to get clients and stuff. I'm like, you literally just have to talk to people. And he's like, but I don't even know what to say. I'm like, anything, like, because I'll be at the airport and I'll start talking to someone in line because
Totally.
it's just like and then all of a sudden this person owns a company and they want to hire
Yeah,
another. And it's like, that's how you make these connections. It's just by like putting yourself out there, even if you're in that hard, like transition place of retirement.
totally. And like I said, it's like the roles kind of reverse where, we're the wives and girlfriends and we're kind of like the fish out of water and this like weird hockey scenario. And then all of a sudden it's like turned around where they're the fish out of water. They're uncomfortable. They're in like a new environment. And I think that's where like we come in to where we're like, hey, like
It's all
if
going to
I
work
can do
out.
this, you can do this. Like it's all gonna be fine. And yeah, so life slows down and it's like we can join those family gatherings and have more time to just relax a little bit. Like now my husband and I were like in bed at like 9 o'clock and I'm like, you'd be playing a hockey game right now. Could you even imagine that? And
Here's a real
so
question for you. Do you miss him going on away games sometimes?
oh my God. I so I miss my alone time.
Yeah.
Totally. Yes. I started glamorizing him going on away games. So like where my alone time was my time, I would get ice cream. I would sit on the couch, go on social media guilt free to where, like you learn to really value that time. And sometimes that is something that I deal with retirement is, I'm always with our son Arthur and I'm at home taking care of you and like where's my space? Like I want like a night off,
Totally.
I miss it.
Totally.
Yeah. So if you have that little alone time, just enjoy it, make the best of it, like glamorize it because it's not going anywhere, right?
Yes.
It's just funny how things reverse over time, but
Yeah, for sure.
retirement, when you get like established and get your feet on the ground, like us getting into our house, it was a full circle moment where we were like, wow, we came this far. This is amazing. And
How does it
we've
feel?
been,
It feels good. Like you feel
oh,
like, oh, thank God, like we needed this.
it's kind of been like life changing because all of our stuff is finally in one place. Like my husband and I, we finally have the same address on our driver's license, like where it's amazing. And, people take that for granted to have that stability and predictability and just planning our roots somewhere and calling it home for good. So it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's so worth the transition. Any change is going to be hard, but you get to choose what you make of it. And it all comes together and it's been really, really nice. I'm like, this next chapter, it's just been different. Like it's wow.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I love that. That's amazing.
yeah.
And I'm happy for you guys. It sounds like you're
Thank you.
ready. You're starting to like find your groove and find your footing with this next chapter. So that's just awesome. And thank you for coming on and just like being so open about everything. Really, it's just relatable. I think.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I was, this was kind of like stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit and I miss hockey and I love it. And I love your page. I think it's amazing what you've done for so many of us girls to feel like, wow, like I'm not just alone here. So it's been super fun. And I just, really good things can come out of bad things. So, it's like
Yeah.
those full circle moments, just trust in those.